Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel, brought to you in part by our friends at Mint Mobile. I am, of course, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, TV and streaming, and all sorts of good stuff. We got a lot of things being dropped by Kevin Feige, talking about Moon Knight. He's talking about Deadpool. He's talking about Spider-Man. Spielberg was gonna do Harry Potter. He says that Tom Cruise saved the movie industry. A lot of stuff for us to talk about here today. And joining us to talk about that stuff is writer, producer, director, editor, philanthropist, Robert Meyer Burnett. Sitting back there, of course, is Ray Ora, chef extraordinaire. Sitting back there, who is literally counting down the hours so he can go see Pooh, Blood, and Honey tonight, is Taylor Gonzalez. Running our shows, of course, Jonathan Voico, and the delightful Chris Carr is here as well. And most importantly, you guys are here. Thanks so much for being here and making the show part of your day. And listen, we got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about here today, so we're just going to dive right into it, and we're going to start off with this. You know, Top Gun Maverick ended up being one of the biggest hits of the year. And, you know, there were a number of doubters out there who thought, you know, this movie is far too old. It's a little too late. Flying fighter jets in the era of drones and unmanned piloting, can it really work? And I admit, to a degree, I was one of those. Like I was one of the people that thought it's a little too late. This is a sequel that should have come out 15 years ago, is one of the thoughts that I had predominantly. But then about a year and a half ago, they showed us the first 18 minutes of the movie at CinemaCon in Las Vegas, like a year and a half ago. And Aaron Cummings and I were like, guys, I don't know if the rest of the movie is going to be as good as the first 18 minutes. But oh my God, the first 18 minutes are amazing. Fast forward then to the next CinemaCon, and they showed us the whole damn movie. And we all came out of that in April going, oh my God, this thing was incredible. And the thing went on to make, I think, just shy of $1.5 billion at the box office, one of the biggest hits of all time. But more significantly than that, and we talked about this a lot on the show back when it was, you know, starting its box office run, it was the movie that didn't bring people back to the theater, because I think Spider-Man No Way Home was really the first film that made just shy of $2 billion. That was the first really huge pandemic era or post-pandemic era mega hit, right? But even though that movie made a whole ton of money, the 40 and over crowd weren't really coming back. The studies and the analytics showed that they weren't really coming back en masse. And Top Gun Maverick was the movie that really brought that all-important box office demographic of 35, 40 years and older back to the movie theaters again. And that accomplishment did not go unnoticed by some of the icons in the business, including Steven Spielberg. Because it's being reported today, there was a video clip of this that came out, that Steven Spielberg went up to Tom Cruise, this great thing, and literally told him and said to him, "You saved Hollywood's ass." And he said, "You literally saved the theatrical industry. You saved the movie industry." And now, if you're like me, when Steven Spielberg said that, at first I thought, well, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. He had a big hit movie, but really, again, if you go back, the importance of that Spider-Man movie cannot be understated. Huge. But if you don't get the casual, money-paying, 35, 40, 45 years and older audience back into the theaters, then the only movies that are going to make money are the big comic book movies. That's it. Top Gun Maverick came out. It got the younger audience out, and it got the older audience back, and it got people starting the process of coming back into the movie theaters. And oh my God, March is coming. And March is going to be a big month for movies. The whole rest of this year is going to be huge. And so you know what? While at first I thought, come on, Steven, that's a little bit of hyperbole. But it might not have been. He might actually be completely accurate. The importance of this film can't be understated about what it did just for the entire industry. And oh, by the way, it just happens to be a really great movie too. Anyway, Rob, you heard Steven Spielberg's comments. Hyperbole, is he on the money? I don't know. What do you think about it?
Well, a little bit of hyperbole. You know, Steven Spielberg can be a good hype man when he needs to be, but I think there's also truth to that, because, you know, the thing about Top Gun Maverick is it was a film that was designed from the beginning as a theatrical experience.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about on the show for years, they held that film back on purpose. You know, they could have released it to streaming during the pandemic. It was supposed to come out. They pushed the release, I believe, 2 years from the time it was supposed to originally come out. What a great move, because they knew what they had. And I think that they knew that, look, well, other people, I think Christopher Nolan, they released Tenet during the pandemic, which damaged his relationship with Warner Brothers irrevocably. And the fact that Paramount, they needed the money. You know, they said, nope, we're going to hold off. And that was a smart move. I mean, I love it when Hollywood makes moves. And of course, I'm sure between Tom Cruise and Jerry Bruckheimer and Chris McQuarrie and Tom Cruise are in the middle of new Mission Impossible movies, they put their foot down, you know, because McQuarrie's also writer-producer on Top Gun. They didn't want to disappoint their three musketeers over there. So they made a call, and that call turned out to be very lucrative.
Yeah, and you know, to be fair, we spend a lot of time on our shows and shows like ours pointing out and going hard when Hollywood makes mistakes. And we should, and we do. But then I think it's important when a really thoughtful decision made with a lot of foresight gets made. Because, yeah, Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie, they put their foot down. Paramount still could have put it on streaming if they really, really want to. But they listened to Tom Cruise. They listened to Christopher McQuarrie. They listened to their advisors. And they were like, you know what? We need product, but you're right. This is a movie that we think can do well. We are not going to go with this whole what Warner Brothers is doing with their day and date release on streaming. We're going to hold off. And man, did it pay off.
And not only that, but, you know, the director of Norbit is now the head of Paramount. You know, and he's a guy that I'm sure was pressured to do all kinds of different things. But if you look since he took over, Paramount has been a powerhouse studio. They've had success after success after success. Taylor Sheridan's success on Paramount Plus. By the way, Picard Season 3 drops tonight. And they have made great moves, and I think Paramount deserves a lot of credit.
Because it wasn't that long ago, Chris, that for a long time, for at least 7, 8, 9 years, the basic narrative around Paramount had been the one studio that's in trouble is Paramount.
Yeah.
Paramount's is struggling, but other than Transformers, they've had nothing and blah, blah,
blah. They had
blah.
Chinese money fall through. That was a huge blow to the studio.
But you're right. Like the last while, we've been talking more about how they have really seemed to turn things around. And one of the big parts of that was the decision to make sure Top Gun Maverick was a theatrical release. And Steven Spielberg is saying it saved the industry. Chris, you heard Spielberg's words. I mean, I don't know if he's completely literally right or partially right. I don't know. How do you take them?
There's definitely merit to the statement, right? Spider-Man No Way Home obviously ushered in so many people to movie theaters, but it was Top Gun Maverick that really got those who were recalcitrant to go back to the actual cinema, the over 40 crowd, to show up, get those butts in seats, and be out there again. So I do think there's actual factuality to this statement. Did it save cinema as a whole? Sure, that's a little bit of inflation there, but it definitely saved a lot of theaters. And to Paramount, too. I mean, Paramount knew it had a hit on their hands. At CinemaCon, they were just riding high, and they have such great backing from their exhibitors now, too, because they really believe in movies being seen in movie theaters. And I think that gamble really has paid off for them, too. Not only do all the people who they work with love them, love having relationships with them, but they've waited out these films that deserve to be on a big screen. And y'all know Top Gun Maverick is not my favorite movie. This is beautiful on a big old IMAX screen, on a big old Dolby screen. Like, you got to go see this in a theater. And I think they just kind of brought back that idea of movies being magical. And that paid off in really big ways.
And hey, guys, question is for you. Steven Spielberg gave Tom Cruise a big old hug and said, you saved Hollywood's ass. You saved the theatrical industry. Maybe not literally true, but I mean, there's a good amount of truth to that. How do you see it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, let's get into another off the top, and we're going to stick on the topic of Steven Spielberg with this. Now, of course, Steven Spielberg, in my estimation, and I'm sure many others, but not everybody, but in my estimation, Steven Spielberg is the single greatest filmmaker of all time. Not only does his resume back that up, but when you go over his resume, he's the one director who has the most diverse portfolio, whether it's old period pieces, whether it's, animation, whether it's comedy, or whether it's action, or whether it's sci-fi, or whether it's biopics. He does it all. And he does it all. Hell, he even made frickin' West Side Story and made it the best film of the year. And he may have made the best film of the year this year as well. But did you know, I certainly did it, that he was lined up to direct Harry Potter? Apparently, he was the one who was lined up to direct Harry Potter. And it just so happens that around that same time that he was going to go do Harry Potter, him and Kate, what's his wife's name again?
Kate Capshaw.
Capshaw were just starting their family. And ultimately, he had to make the decision not to do it. Now, this is what he said. This comes to us from an article in Variety. It says, the personal meaning about how the conflict between art and family will tear you in half happened to me later, after I had already established myself as a filmmaker, as a working director, Spielberg said. Kate and I started raising a family, and we started having children. The choice I had to make was taking a job that would move me to another country for 4 or 5 months where I wouldn't see my family every day. And that was a ripping kind of experience. There were several films I could choose that I chose not to make, Spielberg continued. I chose to turn down the first Harry Potter, to basically spend that next year and a half with my family, my young kids growing up. So I sacrificed a great franchise, which today, looking back, I'm very happy to have done to be with my family. So now, it should be pointed out that around that same time, Steven Spielberg then did go on to direct AI. But the difference was AI was shot in Los Angeles. So he could literally go to work, shoot, go home, tuck his kids into bed. And I've heard stories of him before saying that Kate Capshaw actually like put her foot down and made a rule. It didn't matter what time your shooting day starts. You are driving your children to school. And she would make him drive the children to school every day to make sure that he was getting that time with them, because the life of a director is very chaotic. And he said it's like one of the best decisions the family ever made. But Rob, to me, I am trying to wrap my head around this. A Steven Spielberg, who already to me is the greatest filmmaker of all time. Like I'll have this debate with him, but I don't care. Nobody else comes close. I don't think anybody comes close. When you look at his resume from top to bottom and the diversity in his filmmaking and all that kind of stuff, but take that resume and add Harry Potter to it. The imagination starts to go wild about, and listen, the first Harry Potter movie was already, it already set the franchise up. Clearly they did very, very well, even without Spielberg. But I'm trying to imagine how it could have maybe been a little bit different if Spielberg directed it. And just the fact that his resume, which is already probably the best in history, would also have Harry Potter. I don't know, Rob, you hear about this. Could you imagine a Harry Potter being directed by Steven Spielberg?
I can. It would have been amazing, but he did get like his protege Chris Columbus, who did Gremlins, and he did too. I mean, John, I can't help but think like every morning in the Spielberg house. Meanwhile, in the Spielberg house of family.
Okay.
No, sorry, that's what I was saying. But no, I think that, and also by this time, I think also, and he didn't say this, I don't think he would, but he had spent his early career in the 70s and 80s making a lot of escapist fantasy films. And I think as he moved later into his career, that's when we started to get things like Munich and Catch Me If You Can and Lincoln. And I think that he wanted to probably broaden his horizons. So going back and doing Harry Potter, I think he might have seen as also maybe being a step backward in terms of what, because he could have crushed that. But, he would have crushed. But if you look at AI, AI was a film that Stanley Kubrick was going to make and developed. And he basically gave it to Spielberg because he said, you could make this better than I could. And before his death. And I think that and after he died, I think Spielberg, because they became great friends, Kubrick and Spielberg. And I think that Spielberg also felt an obligation to honor Kubrick after his passing by making AI. But I would like to have seen a Steven Spielberg Harry Potter movie.
That would have been pretty cool. Anyway, Chris, you hear about this. Apparently Steven Spielberg had lined up to do Harry Potter, decided, you know what, I can't move to another country with a young family right now. Could you imagine a Harry Potter, or do you think kind of history worked out the way it should have worked out? What do you think?
I mean, ultimately, I think we got some really, really great films out of this, but I definitely can imagine this because I don't think Steven Spielberg would have had that hard and fast rule of only English actors. He had a great relationship with Robin Williams, obviously, and Robin Williams desperately wanted to be Hagrid. He campaigned to be Hagrid, and obviously Robbie Coltrane did a fantastic job. He was wonderful as Rubeus Hagrid, but imagine Robin Williams in that role. I mean, that's just so fun. And I think stuff like that could have been really, really interesting.
You're right. I mean, like, it's hard for us to imagine today because the roles were taken. Coltrane, R.I.P.
Yeah.
Played. Oh God, it makes that moment so much harder now. Remember that moment in the 20th anniversary Potter special where they're talking to Robbie Coltrane? He says, 20 years from now or 30 years from now, or whatever he says, he goes, I'm not going to be here anymore. But Hagrid will still be there. And then he passed away so shortly after that. But it's hard to imagine anybody else. But anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Apparently, Steven Spielberg was lined up to do the first Harry Potter movie, ultimately decided not to do it so he could stay closer to his family as they were younger. Could you imagine what or how different Harry Potter could have been if Spielberg had done it? Do you think it all worked out just the way it should have worked out? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's get into another off the top here, shall we? And that is this. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige recently did an interview with Entertainment Weekly, and he covered a lot of ground. And we're going to talk about several different of the things that he kind of covered. But one of the interesting ones, at least I knew to our own Robert Meyer Burnett, was when Moon Knight was brought up. Now, there have been a lot of questions surrounding Moon Knight since it debuted. I thought it started strong. I thought it had a couple of very, very good episodes. I was ultimately disappointed in the series as a whole, particularly, I think, by the finale. The finale didn't quite work for me. But there's no doubt there's a lot of potential there. And Oscar Isaac playing Moon Knight was terrific. I mean, him playing that role was terrific. Now, there's been a lot of rumors and speculations about whether or not there would be a season 2 of Moon Knight. Oscar Isaac said, well, we're location scouting for season 2.
Right.
Well, apparently that was a little bit of facetiousness on his part. But when Kevin Feige was directly asked about Moon Knight, Kevin Feige said this. He said, there is a future for that character as we move forward. There's a future for that character as we move forward. Now, it's important to note that he didn't specifically say that there's going to be a season 2 of Moon Knight. He doesn't specifically say that Moon Knight will pop up in Avengers Secret Wars or Avengers Kang Dynasty. He doesn't give any details, but he says there's a future for that character with us. My guess right now is that we're not going to get a Moon Knight season 2. My guess is we will see Moon Knight much like a roadie War Machine who pops up in a lot of projects. And by the way, he does have a project he's leading coming up here with Armor Wars. But I think he's going to become more a character like that, where we're going to see him pop up in some other characters' movies, much like Black Widow did for a long time before her own movie came out. So I found this quite interesting. Anyway, Chris, you hear now Kevin Feige saying that, listen, we're going to see more of Moon Knight. There's a future for him as we move forward. Does that mean to you a season 2 of Moon Knight? How do you see him fitting in? I mean, it's odd to think of him as being a member. I mean, he's not a balanced person. It's hard to think of him as an Avenger, but I don't know. How could you see them using him?
Well, and it's so interesting because of it being a limited series and then them kind of walking that back as well. That's been an issue. I really do think they fumbled the finale, because up until then, I was really enjoying this show. And I believe just their whole 6 to 8 episode seasons really did not allow that story to be told in the way that it needed to be. There just needed to be a little more time. I do think that's a character that would really thrive on the big screen. I mean, imagine seeing those epic god battles on a huge screen like that instead of in your living room. I think it would do really well there. And obviously Moon Knight has teamed up with other people, West Coast Avengers, I believe, Rob.
Yep.
And that'd be really fun to see. But obviously the state that these different personalities are in right now, they are not capable of being, on a team right now. So I'd be interested to see where he's at, especially with the revelation of the third personality manifesting and seeing how that's coming forward. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do here, but I think it still has to be pretty isolated to just Moon Knight existing on his own until you can have him assemble.
Now, Rob, I was in the room at D23 years ago when they made the announcement of Moon Knight. There was nobody else I knew who'd be happier about it than you, but you were also disappointed in the series. Do you think how do you think they can use this character moving forward? Or do you think maybe they took a swing with it, they should just move on from it? I don't know. How would you handle it?
Look, they leaned into an incarnation of the character that came late in his existence, which is the whole dissociative identity disorder. I was looking more toward the romantic noir Moon Knight from the first series in the early 80s that was drawn by Bill Sienkiewicz and Doug Mensch. That's what I fell in love with. I think that they'll bring the character back, but they're going to have to retool him because, as Chris pointed out, he's not fit to be on anyone's team. He doesn't even know who he is. So Moon Knight himself, he has no real agency. Like, he can't, in the Moon Knight incarnation, it's not like he can go to a meeting at Avengers headquarters and listen to a briefing about what they're going to do. And I while I appreciated the choice, I think one of the problems with the character is he wasn't fun. What was fun was watching Oscar Isaac deal with his craziness. But the character of Moon Knight as a superhero wasn't really established. I mean, it was more about these gods fighting and Khonshu and all this. And that was, again, they worked Khonshu into the Marvel universe, the comic universe, later. And they leaned into all that. And I wish they kind of didn't.
I really did like Khonshu, I gotta say.
No, it was, all that stuff was fun, but it took away from Moon Knight himself because, you know, in the original incarnation of the comic, Khonshu was something who was there, and it was more like, is he really possessed, or does he have this or not? And it was more of that's what sort of drove him, because that's how he felt his resurrection was brought about. But was it really? And this leaned heavily into all the fantasy aspects of it. And I was like, it didn't really give Moon Knight a chance to be his own man.
So how do you see them using him?
I think they're going to use him. They're going to bring him in, and they're going to retool him slightly. They're going to say now he has agency. Now he knows exactly what's up, and because he's going to have to be that way. They can't, otherwise he'll just be a comedic character. Like, we have to go fight Kang. Well, let me hang on. I've got my identities. When are they going to pop out? I don't know when I can come join you. So they're going to have to do something to change it somehow.
All right, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Kevin Feige says, yeah, Moon Knight will figure into the future plans of MCU. The question is how? He wasn't really specific when it came to that part. How would you incorporate Moon Knight? Or did you not like the show and you just think they should move on from the character? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on now to our Mint Mobile hotline question of the day. If you've got a question for our show, just call the hotline anytime at 951-268-4259. Leave your message there, and maybe you'll hear your voice on our show. And today, we're talking about a trailer for Children of the Corn. Check it out.
Hey, John and crew, this is James from Tennessee. So I was scrolling through YouTube last night, and I saw that a trailer had dropped for a Children of the Corn remake. I personally had no idea that this was coming, and frankly, the release date says it's coming out on March 3rd. Have you guys seen anything about this? And more importantly, have you guys seen the trailer, and what do you think? Hope to hear from you guys on the show. So take care, guys.
All right, thanks a lot for calling that in. Yeah, I remember a while ago the talk about a Children of the Corn remake, but I am completely with you. I absolutely forgot all about it. And now this thing's coming out in March, and they've dropped the first trailer for it. Okay. First of all, the original Children of the Corn, when I was way younger, I remember that scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. I watched it again maybe about a decade ago, and it didn't hold up quite as well for me personally, but as a kid, it scared the crap out of me. So I'm start watching this trailer for this new one. And first thing I really liked was the old school voice of God narrator for the trailer. You know, it wasn't Don LaFontaine, but it sounded like Don LaFontaine. You know, and I actually wondered, and I asked everybody else, I said, was that the actual real voiceover from the original movie's trailer? Because it sounded so in line with that era, right? And I dug that. It's not, it's all original. It's just kind of an homage to the way the old trailers were made, and that's totally cool. So then they start going through it, and this trailer's terrible. I thought the trailer was just awful. I did, like, there's a real way. There's something about when something that is supposed to be a representation of innocence or safety, like whether it's a parent figure, a clergy member, or whatever, when you take symbols that are supposed to be symbols of safety and turn them bad, that can be very disturbing and horrifying. Or innocence, like the faces of children. That should be terrifying. But to me, watching this trailer, they chose to play it in a way that was not terrifying. It was just kind of schlocky and gimmicky. And there's one of the shots near the end when the woman's face is just close up to the camera and she's like, burn. I'm like, okay, Kang. Or Kane, I should have said. Kane. WWE fans will get that. But I got to tell you, the job of a trailer is to get you more excited to see it. I was curious about this movie. I am no longer curious about the movie. I don't think it was made very well. I think the way they approached this little girl, who probably is playing it exactly the way the director told her to play it, did not come across well to me. Again, there was nothing scary about it. There was nothing. Again, we're just talking about trailer. We have seen many, many bad trailers to fantastic movies, many great trailers to bad movies. We're only talking about the trailer here, but to me, the trailer just didn't do it. Rob, as somebody who appreciates the original Children of the Corn, what did you think about this new trailer?
I thought look, Kurt Wimmer, who directed this, directed Equilibrium and Ultraviolet. Remember Ultraviolet?
Yep, I do.
He's written a lot of genre films, and he hasn't directed, I think, since 2006. Kind of like Todd Field and Little Children and Tar. So this was listed as a 2020 movie. So it leads me to believe that it was in post-production hell for a while.
Yeah, probably.
Now, I thought it looked okay. They've obviously gender swapped the main evil child, to make her a girl instead of the boy. And then, of course, the first film has Malachi, you're the evil kid. And this looked to me okay. I have a fondness for evil kid movies. But again, it just didn't look great. And I wanted it to be great because, look, I love the original story. I think the first film, Linda Hamilton's in it. Yep. She was in it the same year she was in. There you go. There's the first. That kid's a little bit more menacing.
That one picture is way scarier than the entire new trailer is.
Yeah, and the first Children of the Corn, when Linda Hamilton's in it the same year as she was in Terminator. It was directed by Fritz Kirsch, who I told you directed my beloved Tough Turf. And I think that this film is kind of a minor classic of the horror genre. This new one, look, I'm hoping, John, after watching this trailer, it's not a Stephen King story, but it's a George Romero story, and they work together. But the movie The Crazies.
Oh, I remember that.
That Brett Eisner, Michael Eisner's son, directed. I really like that remake. And I'm hoping, looking at this, that as much as I like The Crazies remake, maybe the Kurt Wimmer's Children of the Corn remake will be good, because it certainly took him a long time to get behind in the director's chair again. And I hope it's going to be good, but
yeah,
didn't look so great.
Chris, you had a chance to see this trailer. Are you the one that it won over?
No, I'm not. I've seen the original one, and Malachi and Isaac were all super, super creepy. Also, some of you who've watched this show for a very long time know that one of the guys I dated, when I met all of his family, I learned they were extras as children in this movie.
Oh, wow.
That should have been a red flag moment, but I ignored all of them. It was fine. I'm not going to see this. This looks ridiculous. Also, and not even in like a scary way, in an almost not as fun as The Bad Seed, right? The Bad Seed at least has this murderous little kid in black and white tap dancing on people's hands to kill them and knock them off docks. This looks so just meh to me. I don't know, but it's just the first trailer. And honestly, I had no idea that this movie was coming out. I know I'm not the target audience either, but
again, we got to remember, we are just talking about a trailer, right? The movie could be fantastic. We have no idea, but we are only talking about the trailer, and I don't think the trailer worked all that well, but maybe to you it did. Question is for you guys. Did you like the trailer for the new remade Children of the Corn? Maybe there's some gold in there that we're not uncovering yet. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we're going to move into our main topics here. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second and thank a couple of the sponsors of our John Campea show here today. The good folks over at Manscaped, and of course, my mobile service phone provider, Mint Mobile. Hey guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Manscaped. Breaking news, Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right, they are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using the code Campea for 20% off and free shipping. It all starts with the Beard Hedger. This thing is a juggernaut of fixing faces. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all all with one guard. So no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. You also get the beard shampoo and conditioner. Because guys, you gotta remember that all of your hair is different. Your beard hair is more coarse and easier to damage than the hair on your head. Next, the kit has Manscaped's beard oil. The oil relieves dryness both on the beard and the skin beneath. You then cap it off with the Beard Balm that shapes, styles, moisturizes, and tames for a sculpted look. The Pro Beard Kit also comes with 3 special gifts: a beard brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code Campea at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code Campea. Manscaped Beard Hedger, 1 stroke, 1 guard, 20 lengths. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. If saving more and spending less is one of your top goals for 2023, why are you still paying insane amounts of money every month for your phone bill? Switching to Mint Mobile is the easiest way to save this year. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know I made the switch over to Mint Mobile a while ago. The process couldn't have been easier, and I can't believe that I am spending less than a third of what I was spending on one of the other major carriers before. By going online only and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and switch easily in minutes with eSIM. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Manscaped and, of course, Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show. Remember, guys, when you go and check out and support our sponsors, you're actually supporting us. So if you look in the description of the video, right near the top of our video, you will find links and promo codes to all of our sponsors. And once again, thank you to Manscaped and Mint Mobile. All right, guys, that down, let's get into our main topics here today. And our first one that we're going to talk about is this. Now, this week, tomorrow. Today's Tuesday, right?
Today's Wednesday.
Today's Wednesday? Oh, man, the time flies. Okay, so tomorrow, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania comes out in theaters. I know a lot of people are excited about seeing it. The official full reviews dropped yesterday, and of course, we talked about it yesterday. And they came out as the second lowest critic rating that the MCU has ever had. And since that time, it has only dropped further. That is now ranking, it holds a 53%. As of this moment, Ant-Man and the Wasp holds a 53%, which means literally the critics are completely split. Half the critics like it, half the critics don't. So there you go. Not what the MCU is used to seeing. The MCU is used to seeing 70s as being their low point and whatever. But as of right now, Ant-Man and the Wasp is the second lowest critically rated Marvel film of all time. Now, the big question has been, though, what will the opening weekend be at Ant-Man and the Wasp? And according to reports, they are saying they are now projecting that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is probably going to hit the $95 million mark for its opening weekend. And that's the number. Now, I think we talked a while ago, and I think now this is going back a month or two ago. I said, I think I see it topping out at 120, I think I said. And, the 100, 120, now they're saying it's going to be, they're projecting $95 to $100 million. Now, projections coming from the industry are 95% of the time pretty bang on, but every once in a while, one really breaks expectations. Maybe this one will come in lower, maybe it'll come in higher. We'll have to see. They're projecting at $95 million. So what does that mean for Ant-Man and the Wasp? Well, let's jump over to the classroom for a second. So again, I think the first thing we need to recognize and take a look at here is that this is going to have an effect. The fact that the critic ratings are not glowing and not sparkling, that's going to reduce the number of people who last minute, because you always get those projections, and if the reviews are really great, there'll be a lot of people on Thursday night or Friday night going, I'm hearing great things about Top Gun Maverick or about, the Batman or about whatever. Let's go see it, right? The 53% on Rotten Tomatoes is going to hinder it. It's not going to kill it. It's not going to kill it by any stretch of the imagination, but it will hinder it a bit. So there you go. All right, let's look at the history of Ant-Man, and we're going to start with the first film, okay? So Ant-Man 1. Ant-Man 1 made 57 million. That's not huge. So the first Ant-Man movie came out. I love that movie. Its opening weekend, it officially made 57. Now, what studios like to see is a trajectory. They want to see in a franchise the box office going up. So then when we move up to Ant-Man 2, they ended up getting that trajectory because it went from $57 million to $76 million. Okay, still not huge by Marvel standards by any stretch of the imagination, but it is the trajectory. It made more money than the previous. So with Ant-Man 3 on course for, say, 95 million, and again, maybe it'll come in a little bit above that. Maybe it'll hit that $100 million mark, whatever. That's not bad. Again, it's not up to the standards that Marvel has come to expect of their movies, but Ant-Man has always been one of their smaller franchises. And if it does hit 95, while I think that has to be looked at as a disappointing number for them, it at the very least for Marvel continues this trajectory, right? That every new movie that they put out in this sub-franchise continues to make more and more and more and more. That's what they're looking for. Now, let's put this in, some perspective with some other superhero movies that have come out in the last year or so. So we understand that within the context of Ant-Man movies, a $95 million opening ain't bad in terms of Ant-Man movies. Again, it's the next step up. Well, when we compare it to other, say, franchises that have come out, say, in the last year or so, all right, a $95 million compares well with Black Adam. Black Adam had a $67 million opening. For Ant-Man, that's pretty good. But then when you go down the list of the remaining three big comic book films that come out in the last year, it doesn't hold up so well. I mean, Black Panther 2, which granted it was Black Panther, but that movie made 181 million opening weekend. We're talking double what Ant-Man's projected to make. Thor: Love and Thunder, which was pretty divisive amongst a bunch of people, but that movie still made $141 million opening weekend. Doctor Strange 2 was the best of them all, made $187 million on its opening weekend. And even if you go back into the realm of DC, well, maybe Black Adam didn't compare so well to it, but the Batman, first film in its franchise with Twilight Boy playing the lead, that movie still made $134 million opening weekend. So, well, when we take a look at these numbers, if it does indeed come in at that $95 million range, not bad for the Ant-Man franchise, but comparatively for a Marvel film with your first big Kang presence, I know he was in Loki, but that was just, minor. Your first big Kang presence supposed to be set up as your next big baddie for Phase 5 and maybe Phase 6. And you compare it to the other comic book films that have come out this year. Granted, a lot of these were sequels to bigger franchises. Listen, good for the Ant-Man franchise, but I think if we're just being real, Disney's got to say this will be a little bit of a disappointing number. This will be a bit of a disappointment. Now, I never thought that any Ant-Man film could come out and have $150 million, $200 million opening. But even I, who has been playing it a little bit more conservative, even I think if it does make 95, 96, 97, I don't think there's any other way to spin it other than I think this will be considered a little bit of a letdown for them. And if the movie isn't better than the critic ratings are suggesting it is, it ain't going to have big word of mouth moving forward. And it's not going to have a lot of repeat viewings. Again, I can't say that definitively because I haven't watched the movie yet. I'm watching it tomorrow. But it's going to start off disappointing. And if it's not better than what they're saying it is, it ain't going to have great legs either. So I don't know, Chris, you see these numbers. They're projecting right now 95 million. Maybe it comes in at the 105 million range. But how do you think Marvel should interpret this if it does indeed come in at these numbers, 95, 96, 97? What do you think?
I mean, they need to have stronger numbers than this, though. These movies cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
They need to get the return on this. And these have been so mixed from the people I've heard who have seen this, like looking at Twitter too, just seeing how people are reacting to it. It feels like no one's seen the same movie. It feels like everyone has their own interpretation of what was happening. And I brought up last week, my friends who went and saw it, they said, it's a movie, which isn't the most ringing endorsement. And I feel like that's how a lot of these last few movies have been. And maybe that is because people are feeling some sort of superhero fatigue, or maybe it's because we had such a big buildup to, Infinity War and everything like that. How do you follow up with those films? How do you follow up after something like Shang-Chi? How do you really, really deliver in a Marvel film? Because we also have these huge expectations now. And I think that's another one that I know I'm running into with Quantumania is, oh my gosh, we're setting up Kang. Oh, this movie is going to have huge ramifications for the MCU. And I keep going into the movies with that thought in my mind. This is going to have huge ramifications for the greater MCU. And I need to put that aside. But also maybe Marvel needs to start stringing a few things together. I haven't seen this movie, so I can't say whether or not they do that. But I think they need to have a clearer, more concise plan moving forward. Because what worked so well before was decades of work, right? And now we're trying to kind of come back in and recreate the same recipe with all new people or all new situations. They've got an uphill battle. We all loved Tony Stark. We all loved Captain America. Are we going to love these other people who are coming in, or some of these B-listers who are now stepping into their power a bit more?
Rob, we're seeing the critic rating is obviously already much lower than they'd like to see it. It makes it the lowest of the Ant-Man films and the second lowest of the MCU as a whole. Let's say it comes in at 95 million for argument's sake right now. And again, it could come in a little bit higher than that. But let's say it comes in at 95 million. It will make it the biggest opening for an Ant-Man film, but relatively low compared to the other superhero films we've seen come out in the last year or so, notwithstanding Black Adam. If it does come out at this, how should Marvel be looking at this, and how do you think they should take it?
Well, I think that there's been if you look at Iron Man 1, John, Iron Man 1 is a pretty simple story about a man who has to confront his own shortcomings, the fact that he has a crisis of conscience, confronting the fact that his company makes weapons and he himself was almost destroyed by them. And it's a fairly intimate film. I think what Marvel has done, and I think it's now becoming problematic film after film after film, all of these movies have become so huge. Let's introduce Namor. Let's have all these global conflicts. I look at Quantumania and I think to myself, one of the great charms of the Ant-Man movies was they were on a small scale. You're dealing with Paul Rudd and literally his relationship with Scott Lang with his daughter, or with Hope, or with Pym, Hank Pym, and they were stories about a dude trying to make his way in the world. A former ex-con finds this quantum technology, becomes Ant-Man. This film, as you've pointed out, is such a dramatic change from the first two Ant-Man movies. It's no longer a heist movie. They've literally pivoted into this giant science fiction. There's freedom fighters, and there's different societies, and there's Kang, and there's all this stuff going on that's supposed to be setting up the rest of the Marvel Phase 5, 6, 7, or whatever. And I think what's lost in it, what's the story of Ant-Man this time? What's going on? And the thing is, Ant-Man's story is now secondary to furthering the needs of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think...
Well, we don't know that. We haven't seen the movie yet.
Well, I'm judging just the reviews that I've read.
Right.
People saying it's like Star Wars, and seeing how big it is, where the thing is, it should really still be a story about Scott Lang. And while I know he's going to come into conflict with Kang, and it'll be a great comic book story, at the end of the day, are we going to get a satisfying story about Ant-Man and the Wasp? Because all this other stuff is just this cacophony of noise, and you're waiting to find out. And all. I think that what Marvel is they're losing the personal, and they were good at having that balance. Captain America movies, the 3 Captain America movies were pretty good, as big as they got. Always keeping the focus on Steve Rogers and something going on in his life, whether it was protecting Bucky, whether it was protecting what he believed in. It always came down to him. Whereas this movie, it's about Quantumania. It's not necessarily about Scott Lang and Ant-Man. So, look, I'm really looking forward to this movie, to be honest. I love science fiction movies. And I think the reason that this movie might have a low critic score is I think it's sometimes just too much for people. Science fiction movies and all this craziness, not everyone likes all of that. They're not used to that. And the thing about the Ant-Man movies is they gave you a lot of good humor. They were fun. They were comedic. And Paul Rudd's comedic. And now he's put into a situation where it looks pretty intense. And are we missing the Paul Ruddism at all? I don't know.
Okay, so let me ask you the question again. if this movie does make $95 million, how should Marvel look at that?
Not good. I think this movie they spent a lot of money on this movie, a lot more than the other Ant-Man movies. I think they expected this movie. They even talked about it. This is our Civil War.
You're right. Peyton Reed said, I don't want to be a palate cleanser anymore. Yeah. This is an Avengers level movie.
And that's what he wanted to do. That's what they were seeking out. That's what they were hoping for. They're looking for those kinds of numbers. And I find it interesting that they would expect to get them from a franchise that hasn't delivered those numbers in the past. Well, now he's an Avenger. Maybe he's part of it, but he was a reluctant Avenger.
All right, guys. Question is for you. The projections right now are that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania are going to be aiming for about a $95 million opening weekend. Could come in a little bit higher than that. Could come in a little bit lower. But at that, and being the biggest opening for an Ant-Man film, but not comparing so well to a lot of the other comic book films that have come out lately, do you think Marvel should look at that as a success? The 53% right now isn't boding well for it, but hey, maybe this thing can still do well. How are you guys interpreting it, and how should Marvel interpret it? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to another off the top here, shall we? And that one is this. Talking about underdog movies. When Warner Brothers first announced their Joker movie, I still remember, I think I was at Comic-Con when I first got the news, I think. And a lot of people were very upset. Very upset. How can you have a Joker movie without Batman? How you can't do it. And then the word came out that it wasn't going to be connected to the DCU. Why? What's the point of doing this movie if it's not connected to the DCU? Blah, blah. And me, I was throwing a party because I had been begging and pleading for one of the two major comic book movie studios, either Marvel or DC, to have the testicular fortitude to actually start putting out some Elseworld kind of movies. Because the comic books have done them for years, for decades. Tell some really great creative stories where the filmmakers aren't handcuffed to what's going on in the continuity of their main shared cinematic universe. Remember standalone movies? Those used to be great. So a lot of people were very angry at the idea of this Joker movie is coming, even when they announced that one of the world's great actors, Joaquin Phoenix, was going to be playing the role. That movie only went on to make over $1 billion at the box office for Warner Brothers and get a Best Picture nomination. Oh, and won Joaquin Phoenix the Best Actor Academy Award that year. Fantastic. It was supposed to be one and done. But when your movie makes over $1 billion and you get a Best Picture nomination and you're a comic book franchise, yeah, it's hard to stay buried in the shadows. So quickly came the announcement that there was going to be a part 2. Joker, something ado. Folie ado is what's coming out. I had to take French in school for 8 years.
There was an X-Files episode named that.
Folie ado. And Lady Gaga, or as Clayface would say, Lady Gaga, was going to come in and play Harley Quinn now. So that's interesting. Well, the director of the film has now put out the first image that we get a peek at, and I'll tell you what, this image kills it. I love images from a movie that seem to capture the spirit of the movie in one frame. And first of all, I love the way on Joaquin Phoenix, the makeup is all smeared out and mussed up and all. First of all, he's in, I guess, Arkham, and he's still got his makeup. So that's pretty cool. But the look on Gaga's face is fantastic because it's a little bit of fear mixed with shock, mixed with
awe.
Horny.
I was going to say horny, but sure, yeah. Awe as well. It's got a bunch of awe in that as well. I love this shot. I think this shot looks great. Now listen, a lot of people keep talking about the new Joker movie and saying, don't forget, it's a musical. It's not a musical. There are going to be a couple of musical numbers. And then listen, maybe they do, but what they have officially said, they have not said the movie is a musical. They said the movie will have a couple of musical numbers. There is a distinction there. But I'll tell you what, guys, I love this image. I absolutely love it. And listen, I'm not real big on singers thinking they can just, because I'm famous, I can cross over and be a movie star. Lady Gaga's been doing drama club and all this kind of stuff and acting since she was a kid. She absolutely killed it, obviously, in A Star is Born. I think she, even though not everybody loved the movie, I think she did a great job in, I almost said the Finucci's. That, of course, is a Sylvester Stallone movie. What is, not the Gucci's, the
House of Gucci.
House of Gucci.
Ew.
The House of Gucci.
House of Finucci.
If those of you who know the Fanucci reference, bonus points to you.
Oscar.
They're very good. That was from the movie, Sylvester Stallone movie, Oscar. I love that movie. Anyway, I think this looks great. Chris, you had a chance to see the first image. What do you think about it? Where are your expectations? Are you looking forward to this? Should they left well enough alone with the first one? What do you think?
I mean, if you'll recall, I headcanoned that he died in this movie, so I'd never have to see another one.
Right.
So I'm not, again, I'm not the target audience for this. I saw the film one time, and that was good for me. This is not a movie that I want to see over and over again, the first Joker, because, this is a very real person who Joaquin Phoenix captured very well, but this kind of person exists in the world, and I don't want to spend a lot of time with him. That being said, this image definitely really conveys a lot of passion, and I love when a still frame can just show you exactly what's happening in a moment. These two are so connected. I love it. I think it's just like a moment maybe in a Dr. Quinzel session where things just go off the rails, and that's exciting. I'm not particularly looking forward to this one in general, though, just since I wasn't a fan of the first. But hey, I could be, completely changed once I see more footage.
Rob, you've seen the first image. Where's your expectation level going into this? And because you saw the first one with me.
Yeah.
And where are your expectations now?
Dude, my expectations are quite high. I looked at this image and you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Alex Cox's biopic, Sid and Nancy, about Sid Vicious, the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, I remember that.
Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen. That's what this looked like to me. And I'm so there for this. I want to see some twisted, messed up, completely psychotic romance that has music and rainbows and insanity. And I'm like, that's exactly what this looks like to me. And I'm so happy that we're getting it. And, look, Todd Phillips, I thought, borrowed a great deal from Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver and the first Joker.
Scorsese was one of the guys that shepherded this into existence.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there was a lot of King of Comedy in there. So I'm hoping that Todd Phillips is looking to other movies like Sid and Nancy to put into this, because I think give me a twisted relationship between a man and a woman. That's like a subgenre of film that I love. The crazier, the better. And this looks like the Star Wars of crazy relationship drama. And I'm there for it. Maybe it's the Alien of crazy relationship drama.
Somebody asked me, they said, because we were talking about it a little bit, and I said, I actually think Gaga's going to be really good. I loved her in House of Gucci. And they said, but John, can you really see Lady Gaga going, hey, Mr. J? And I'm like, no, but that's the point. This is a different this is just like Joaquin's Joker in the first movie was a very different interpretation and expression of a Joker character than we've ever seen before. It's totally different. I expect they're going to do the same thing with Harley Quinn. There's going to be a heart of the spirit of the character in there, but I think it's going to be manifested very differently. So yeah, I can't see Lady Gaga dressed up in the Harley Quinn outfit and going, hey, Mr. J. I don't see her doing that. But for a movie like this, that is in its own world, I'm looking forward to seeing a different expression of it, just like Joaquin gave us in the first one.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. It's not going to be that. If you think it's going to be the animated Harley Quinn or anything we've seen before, no, it's not going to be that at all. It's going to be much more real world, much more down to earth, call it, and much more twisted.
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think of the first picture that Phillips has just released of his upcoming Joker 2 movie? I think it looks great. I think just the moment he captured there, the one he decided to share was fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. Are you guys? Maybe you didn't like the first movie. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to another main topic here, shall we? And that one is this. I've been saying for a bit now, probably to me, the biggest piece of movie news I have covered in my career, other than, Disney buying Lucasfilm and there were going to be new Star Wars films. I still remember when that happened back in my AMC days. But after that, I honestly, to me, is Hugh Jackman coming back to play Wolverine in a Deadpool 3. That really, and I'm not using hyperbole there. That to me really is the next biggest piece of movie news I think I've ever had a chance to cover in my career. I absolutely loved it. Now look, there's been a lot of talk about ever since Disney bought Fox. It has been, what are you going to do with Deadpool? Because the MCU don't do rated R, and I don't know that you can do now that you've done Deadpool R. I don't think you can go back and not do him R anymore. Like I've always thought, if Fox had come out of the gate and found a way to do Deadpool as a harder PG-13, I think that could have worked. I do. I honestly think that could have worked. And I think you're wrong to think that the only way it could be done was rated R. But they made the right decision and did go rated R. And I just think that while you could have done PG-13 before, I don't think you can go back. Now that we've had Ryan Reynolds as that kind of Deadpool, I don't think we can backtrack that. It's got to be rated R. And we have heard a lot of affirmations from Rhett Reese and Brett Wernick, who are writing it and wrote the other Deadpool movies, saying, yeah, Disney's letting us, no notes to us. They're letting us do whatever we want to do. So we were all pretty comfortable it's going to be rated R. Well, now Kevin Feige has come out and he's made it official. Deadpool 3 is going to be Marvel's first R-rated film. And I'm going to read a couple of quotes here. This first one is coming from Sean Levy, who's going to be, of course, directing this movie. He said, "We are writing, rewriting, developing, prepping Deadpool every day now. It's such a blast to laugh every day. It is so delicious to hear and write and come up with these scenes where people are just talking foul. And the violence is in your face and hardcore. It is very much a Deadpool movie." So that, I mean, from Sean Levy, that sounds pretty much like we're getting an R-rated film. Well, then here's what Kevin Feige now had to say about it. Kevin Feige said this: "It's amazing. And we've got Hugh Jackman coming back for our first Deadpool film within the MCU. This is our first R-rated film." There's your confirmation. This is our first R-rated film. To have Hugh come back is incredible for me personally, because remember, Kevin Feige was an associate producer on that first X-Men film. He says, "Because for me personally, that is where I started. I remember sitting behind the camera, well behind the camera, at Hugh Jackman's first audition for the film. It was his first on-set audition, and we flew him up to Toronto to do a read with Anna Paquin. For him and for me, and I think for all the fans of Marvel, it's unbelievable what has happened in the last 23 years. It's very full circle having him come back into this new Deadpool film." So for Kevin Feige, this whole Deadpool experience and getting to have Hugh Jackman come back is full circle for him, because he got to work with him on that first X-Men film. Now he's coming back, confirming it's rated R. Rob, now that it's done, it is 100% official. We've all expected it to be rated R. Absolutely we have, but now it is in concrete. It's official. It's an R-rated film. This is clearly going to cause some obstacles for them when they try to cross Deadpool into other MCU movies that cannot be rated R. But that being said, is it the right move for them to let this stay R-rated?
Well, I think so, because it's a lucrative franchise already. I mean, it's made $1.5 billion over 2 movies. And when you have a film that's that successful, you can't really change its identity and expect it to still make the same kind of money. And I think, look, again, an irresistible premise, putting Deadpool and Wolverine together. It's a long time coming. It's a vindication of the first Wolverine Origins, X-Men Origins movie, Wolverine, where Wolverine and Ryan Reynolds appeared before. Wolverine and Deadpool didn't work out so well. You know, love to see this happening. And my God, this movie's going to come out in 2024. He will have been Wolverine since 2000. Almost a quarter of a century if Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. I mean, that's crazy. But I think that this movie is probably going to be so much fun. And I love both Deadpool movies. I thought Deadpool 1, Tim Miller knocked out of the park. But I like the second one very much too. And I think that having Sean Levy direct, and he's got a great relationship with Ryan Reynolds already, you know, I think this movie is going to be, dare I say, delightful? I mean, it's going to be delightfully entertaining. I know that. I can't wait.
I'll tell you what, in Deadpool 2, that fight between Juggernaut and Colossus is probably in my top 10 favorite comic book movie fights ever. I love that fight.
Yeah.
I think that fight was incredible. Anyway, Chris, it's now official. Kevin Feige's taken any of the speculation out of it. This is our R-rated film. Yeah. They are moving forward in that direction. Right decision, wrong decision. How do you think they'll handle it moving forward with Deadpool maybe being in other MCU movies where they can't let him be rated R? What do you think?
I mean, right decision. And also, I thought we had signed, sealed, and delivered on this already. I thought it was for months now we've been talking about, it's going to be rated R. yeah, no, we're going to do a rated R movie. Was everyone just not believing it? Was everyone like, I think
there's
so?
There's a lot. We've all just assumed because, the writers have talked about how the fact that, hey, they're letting us go. They're not putting any restraints on us.
Yeah.
One time Kevin Feige said when talking about Blade, like he basically laid out that Blade wouldn't be rated R. It's like, well, that one's only going to be really reserved for Deadpool.
Yeah.
But it wasn't straight up Deadpool is rated R. And now any of the speculation's gone.
I've just always assumed after the writers were like, no, we've got carte blanche. We get to do what we want. And I've said before, I wanted to have that kind of David Fincher thing of, you can give us one note. You can change one joke, and then we're going to come back with something worse, is what I really hope. I mean, you've got so much potential for this to just be so funny, so raunchy, so whimsically violent. I think you got to make it rated R. You can't walk it back. This would feel so neutered then, And if you take away some of that kind of raunchy, ridiculous, over-the-top violence, it's not going to feel like the Deadpool that we've had for 2 movies. And sure, things can change and evolve and characters can grow in different ways, but you still have to have some of those same elements that are the essence of the character, so it totally makes sense to me.
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this? They're saying that this is it. Kevin Feige saying this is rated R. We are moving forward with this. Sean Levy says this is going to be hyper gory, hyper violent, hyper foul. And then how do they manage that going into other movies? Because they're not going to make... Kevin Feige's already laid out that no other MCU films, including Blade, are going to be rated R. So how are they going to handle having Deadpool in other movies? Are they just not going to have Deadpool in other movies? I don't know. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's get into our final topic here today, shall we? And that one is this. Sticking with this Kevin Feige interview with Entertainment Weekly, where he was dropping a whole bunch of nuggets, probably by far the biggest one that came out. Of course, Ray had to giggle at that. Kevin Feige dropping nuggets, and Ray's like, so by far, the biggest one is easily this. It's Spider-Man. Because ever since the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, there's been several levels of questions, both on screen and off screen. On screen, where does Peter go from here? Where does the story progress from this point now that nobody knows that he's Peter Parker and all that kind of stuff? But also off screen. All right, we're pretty much at the end of the Sony Marvel re-upped deal. What do? A lot of us kind of figured that, listen, everybody's making money. Everybody's really happy. Maybe they continue and extend this out a little bit longer. I mean, at some point, Sony's just going to take Spider-Man back. But do you need to do that right now? Maybe not. So how are they going to move forward with this? Well, Kevin Feige was asked directly about what's going on with Spider-Man, and he said this. He said, all I will say is that we have the story. They've got the story. The story's locked. They know what they're doing with this movie. All I will say is that we have the story, and for Spider-Man's return, we will have big ideas for that, and our writers are now putting pen to paper as we speak. So they say we've locked the story. Kevin Feige's approved the story that they've got, and now it's the process of sitting down. Say, well, wait, if the story is doesn't mean the script's done. So what will often happen is most of the time is they'll come up with like a 10-page treatment, right? Just something that'll just, here's our idea for the movie. This is the movie in a nutshell. And then they go, okay, yes, go ahead with that. Then they bring in screenwriters. They start fleshing the whole thing out. We'll end up with our 130-page, whatever, screenplay at the end of it. So it sounds like they are moving full steam ahead. Rob, I think we all expected that. Of course, we're going to see another Spider-Man movie, right? Especially after No Way Home flirted with $2 billion, $1.9 billion in the box office. That thing came out, defied all expectations. We knew there would be more. We knew when Tom Holland was saying, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be playing Spider-Man anymore. We said, yeah, that's not true at all. He knows he's playing Spider-Man again and all this kind of stuff. They've got their plans. So the question is for you. 2 parts. Number 1, where do they go with this Spider-Man now, with the way the MCU is changing and all that kind of stuff? And number 2, how much longer do you think Sony and Marvel will stay in this sort of arrangement before Sony at some point says, you know what, we're going to just try now making our own Spider? I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, where do you go? I mean, I really like the idea. I was talking about earlier, the personal nature of these superhero stories has been sort of lost. With Spider-Man now, we have a great personal story. Here is a man who has literally had his life stripped away. He has no past, no friends, no one remembers him. He has his aunt is dead. Where does a man like that go? You get to reinvent yourself. What does Peter Parker do now? The slate is clean. How does he move forward and reinvent himself for the world he lives in now? And how does he continue his own relationship with Spider-Man? I think that's a fascinating story to tell. I love this because it makes it deeply personal to him, and we're going to get to watch him the same way when you learned when we watched Tobey Maguire grapple with his spider powers at the beginning of Spider-Man 1. That was a lot of fun. Now we're going to have to watch Peter Parker grapple with how does he rebuild his life? How does he do that? Like, I don't know. And like, what does he do without ID? Like, can he go to a bank? Like, how's he going to get it? He's got to find all these stories I'm looking forward to seeing. So that's exciting. Then people know Spider-Man. They just don't know Peter Parker. Well, what happens when the real you has no identity and that your superhero identity is the only thing that people know about you? I mean, I love this idea. And then if no one remembers him, he's now got the perfect secret identity that nobody remembers. He can't be discovered as Peter Parker because if somebody pulled off his mask, they wouldn't care. They're like, who are you? We don't know who you are. So how does that help him be Spider-Man? I think that could be really interesting. So I think where they're going to go from this is as he's trying to discover who he is, he's also going to find maybe somebody comes gunning for him, or I don't know. And so at the same time, he's trying to build up who he's supposed to be in real life. I mean, in his life, someone's going to come after him and try and destroy him in a way that we haven't seen before. I don't know what that is. Will they have other Spider-Men? I wouldn't be surprised if the other two Spider-Men come back and help him become Peter Parker again or something like that. I don't know. I have no idea.
Again, the article in question also pointed out that, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield have both kind of at least hinted that they would be open to coming back again. I mean, I honestly don't, for a long time, I never thought they would come. I thought that was their swan song, that they gave them their proper goodbyes that everybody wanted them to have. And I still kind of think that's probably it. I don't think we're going to see them back again. But I would say this. The thing that makes me most excited about where Spider-Man can go now is no more frickin' Iron Man Jr.
Oh, yeah, no.
Spider-Man gets to finally be Spider-Man. Spider-Man doesn't need an AI-assisted frickin' battle suit. He's Spider-Man. And as much as I have loved the Tom Holland Spider-Man in the MCU, I've loved it. Make no mistake about it. I've absolutely loved it. But the one thing that has scratched my ass about it is like, why do they always have to make him Iron Man Jr.? Why does he have to have an AI-assisted battle suit just like frickin' everybody in the MCU? Even the Dora Milaje now have Iron Man suits. I mean, I'm so happy to see. That's why I love the end of No Way Home when you literally see that he's got a sewing machine and is making his own Spider-Man thing. I'm like, yeah, this is great. Anyway, Chris, for you, Kevin Feige is now saying we got the story for Spider-Man 4. We're now putting it in development, moving forward. Are you surprised at all? Does this make sense? Where do they go with this? How do you see it?
It makes sense. This movie was killer. The last movie was great. Like we were talking about earlier, it got people to get back to movie theaters and everything. It was wonderfully done. I am really excited to see this more old school version of Peter Parker, though. Is he going to take up photography? Are we going to find a way to get back to the Bugle, given that that is very InfoWarsy right now? Is he still going to be a photographer for them or work for them? Is he going to be able to get back to college and do everything? I mean, does he still have transcripts, even though people don't know who he is? I want to know about all those logistics as well. Does this allow him to meet Gwen Stacy and have that relationship? Is true love going to make MJ remember him? There's a whole bunch of stuff here that can happen that I think is really, really exciting and a really cool time for Peter too, because now he gets to explore the world as a young man on his own, trying to find his way. And I think it will have a lot of that kind of like 60s sensibility. We just left with One Day More, basically, was that kind of storyline that we borrowed from. I'm excited to see where they go from here.
Yeah.
All right, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? Kevin Feige says we're now Spider-Man 4 is in development. We've got our story. We've got our screen renders now fleshing it out. Are you excited about this? Where do you think they can go with it? How much longer do you think Spider-Man is going to be in the MCU? I don't know. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, we are now going to open things up to our beloved channel members. If you are one of the channel members of the John Campea YouTube channel, first of all, thank you so much for being a channel member. But if you guys who are channel members look in the community tab, Jonathan Voico is now putting up a post there for you guys, our channel members, to fire in your thoughts, theories, questions, and opinions, and we'll address as many of those as we can once we come back from our next sponsor break. And we do want to thank a couple more sponsors of the John Campea Show here today, our friends at ExpressVPN and BetterHelp. Guys, we want to take a second and thank a sponsor of this video, ExpressVPN. You've heard me talk about how important it is to have a VPN to protect your online privacy, but choosing a VPN you trust is equally as important. Now, I like to do research on my sponsors, and I only recommend brands to my listeners that I believe in, and I can say with full confidence that ExpressVPN is the best VPN on the market, and here's why. Number one, ExpressVPN doesn't log your activity online. Lots of cheap or free VPNs make money by selling your data to advertisers, but ExpressVPN doesn't do this. They even developed a technology, Trusted Server, that makes their VPN servers incapable of storing any data at all. Number two, speed. ExpressVPN now uses Lightway, a new VPN protocol they engineered to make user speeds faster than ever. ExpressVPN is always blazing fast and lets me stream videos in HD quality with zero buffering. The last thing that really sets ExpressVPN apart is how easy it is to use. You don't need any technical skills to get set up. Just fire up the app and tap one button to connect. That's it. Even your grandparents could do it. And it's not just me saying this. CNET, Business Insider, The Verge, and many other tech journals rate ExpressVPN the #1 VPN in the world. So protect yourself with a VPN that I use and trust. Use my link, expressvpn.com/Campea today and get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. Visit expressvpn.com/Campea to learn more. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, BetterHelp. When you're at your best, you can do great things, but sometimes life gets you bogged down, and you may feel overwhelmed or like you're not showing up in the way that you know you can. Working with a therapist can help you get closer to the best version of you, because when you're feeling at your best, the challenges that life throws at you don't disappear, but you're more prepared to take on those challenges. Guys, you know I've been saying for a long time that we need to start prioritizing our mental health as much as we do our physical health. When we dedicate ourselves to going to the gym and looking after ourselves, we see that as a great step forward for us physically. Well, it's time for us to start taking care of ourselves mentally as well. So if you're feeling it's time to give therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So if you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/Campea today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at ExpressVPN and BetterHelp for being sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show. Hey guys, quick programming note. Normally we would be having a Weekly Hero today. That has been bumped to Friday because a little bit later this afternoon for the Designing Hollywood show, which you know is a show we have up here on the channel, we've got legendary and iconic Hollywood producer Jerry Bruckheimer. We were just talking about him with Top Gun and all that kind of stuff. Jerry Bruckheimer is going to be the newest guest on our Designing Hollywood show. And that it's not going up today, but that interview is being done today. And so because we're doing that interview, Weekly Hero will happen on Friday. Now, a little bit later today in the afternoon, we will be doing an open mic. So make sure you come on back. Join me at 3 p.m. Los Angeles time. That's 6 p.m. New York time. And we will be having an open mic. I hope to see you guys there. All right. With that all down, guys, let's get into our channel members' questions. So what do we get up here first? That's not it.
Whoa.
There we go.
Wow. Are we starting with Ulatan down here?
Oh, start from the top.
Oh, thank you. Sam Fisher. I can't be the only one who thinks that Ke Huy Quan's comeback to acting is going to be made into a movie in 20 years or so. And hell, ironically, be played by Henry Golding because Crazy Rich Asians brought him back.
I mean, listen, Ke Huy Quan's story is one of the great feel-good stories of Hollywood. He was a child actor, disappeared, said there's no roles for Asian performers in Hollywood, blah, blah, blah. Saw Crazy Rich Asians with Henry Golding and said, maybe there is a place. And now he's probably going to win an Academy Award. I mean, come on, how great of a story. You're right. This is a movie that, hell, 5 years from now, somebody can turn into a movie. Somebody can turn this story into a movie like 5 years from now. So I can see it happening.
Totally agree.
All right, what's next?
From Picture This. Hey, John and crew. Are any of you planning to go see Pooh, Blood, and Honey tonight? I've already purchased my tickets and can't wait to see it.
Well, there's at least one of us.
All right. I've been doing the math, you guys.
Have
I
you?
think it's 7
That's
hours
bad math.
and 15 minutes till Pooh is upon me. I will be drenched in blood. I will be drenched in honey. I will be seated alongside the cinematographer, the composer, and the actor who plays Winnie the Pooh. I am so excited for this movie. It is game day.
Woo-woo.
Game day.
Sure.
You little one.
It is Pooh day.
All right, what's next?
From Drew. Hey, guys. Love the show. You all are doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
I watch every day and love every second of it. Thank you so much and keep up the great work.
Oh, thank you, Drew. Appreciate that very much, man. Thanks for being here. All right, what's next?
From Ulatan. Is it just me, or does Jamie Dutton's story arc in Yellowstone seem like it could be an appropriate Joker origin story? This character has been on the cusp of one bad day for his entire life.
No, it's like, honestly, Jamie is like one of my favorite characters in the show because I love this character, and this is why. It's why I love the show so much. At his heart, I think he's a good man, and he's very flawed. He makes mistakes, and oftentimes it's just bad discernment, making bad decisions. Ultimately, like, oh my God, there was a scene this season where it's like his sister, because him and his sister, they hate each other, and he's wants to have a relationship with his sister, I think, but his sister finds out that he has a kid, and she starts screaming that she's gonna take his kid away from him. And she gets out of the car, and then he's like thinking about running her down with this car, ultimately decides not to. Oh my God, I just love this character. You're right. It's like a super villain origin story. But can I tell you guys my theory? I can tell you my theory. If you're watching Yellowstone, you're caught up. If you're not watching Yellowstone, you won't care. So here's my theory. So when we come to the end of the mid-season break of Yellowstone this season, if you guys don't want to hear this, hit mute. I'll put my hand down when you can unmute it. Actually, go ahead, bring up the spoiler thing. Spoiler will come down when you can unmute it. Of course, the mid-season break ends where Jamie and Beth are each individually trying to plot to kill the other. I guess, hey, siblings, they're trying to plot to kill the other. I think everything that's going on with Jamie and Kevin Costner, his dad, because Beth is trying to talk to her dad that they need to kill Jamie, and Jamie is plotting to get his dad thrown out of office and all this kind of stuff. Here's my theory. I think Jamie and his dad are in it together. I think Jamie and John Dutton are in cahoots to try to take down the people trying to take Kevin Costner down. And because if you go back to the end, Beth says to her dad, I think it's time that Jamie be taken out to the train station. That's their code for killed, right? And John Dutton basically says, I need to tell you something. And then the camera pans back and we don't hear what he tells her. I had a theory for a while. There's a great picture of the three characters. I've had this theory for a couple of episodes before that Jamie and John are actually in this together. And they're all setting up the girl that Jamie's sleeping with to take her and her company down. And if they do that, it's going to be awesome. But that's my theory. I'm probably wrong, but that's my theory. All right, spoiler sign can come down now. We're back. Okay, what's next?
From Sin Vendetta, my only question about Spider-Man 4 is what home subtitle will it have? LOL. Also, Rob, nice Star Wars shirt.
Oh, the Blue
thank
Harvest.
you.
That is a Family Guy, is it not?
Well, this was what Return of the Jedi was shot under.
Yeah, that was the working. So Family Guy
right.
Yeah,
called
they
their
did that.
episode Blue Harvest.
Yes.
As
yes,
an homage
it is.
to that.
Yes.
What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. Yeah, because the Spider-Man thing's got to have a home.
Right.
Spider-Man Homeless.
Spider-Man Homeless. That can work.
Spider-Man Homeward Bound, and it's about a whole bunch of dogs
It's about a
I'd
whole
love
bunch
that.
of dog.
and a cat named
Spider-Man Home Bro.
Town buffet.
No. All right, what's next?
That's my favorite one. Right?
Spider-Man Home Wrecker.
Hey, it's perfect.
Spider-Man Home Alone. There's a few other ones coming in. All right, what's next?
From Stella McShave, concerning yesterday's Fred Astaire news, I loved Fred Astaire in The Towering Inferno.
Yep.
An unusual dramatic role for him as a con man. He was nominated for a supporting actor Oscar for it.
Yeah, he wasn't just a song and dance. He was a Hollywood actor.
He was great. I mean, he was a great leading man.
I think it's really interesting though. They got 2 movies, Fred Astaire movies coming out. They're gonna be roughly the
I
same
know
time.
it's right now when no one remembers Fred Astaire in the generation that we have.
One starring the guy who played Billy Elliot, the other starring the guy who played Billy Elliot on stage.
So funny.
It's a small world, man. All right, what's next?
Okay, sorry, Marcus Way in the chat just said, "No way, homie."
No way.
That's gold.
That's not bad. That's not
Callum,
bad.
Rob Picard season 3 is at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Damn, can't wait for the first episode.
Yeah, well,
Who's
everybody
been
on
taking the
Twitter
place?
thinks I'm wrong. They're all yelling at me saying that I'm a paid shill for Paramount.
Here's
It's
the
so cute
thing
when
though,
people do that.
and this is true. I was listening. Who was talking about? It was some YouTuber I heard talking about. They said something very accurate. Whenever we say, and we've all been guilty of this, me, Rob, everybody, and we say Twitter is in an uproar. 90% of the time, that's like one tweet by somebody that had 40 likes, and we say Twitter's an uproar. I think there are probably a lot of people that are actually quite excited for.
I think so.
Season 3.
I think so too. It's just what I find really interesting is there's this big contingent of the fan base, whether they're on Twitter, whether they're on YouTube, that are saying, I'm not going to watch this because of the vandalism. Look, no one's hated Star Trek more than I have since 2009. But when something good comes along, it's like, oh, this is really good. Like, I'm not going to sit there and go, I'm not going to watch the good thing because what came before it's bad. That would be like saying, I'm a James Bond fan. Diamonds Are Forever is not a good movie, but I can't imagine not watching Roger Moore's first go at Bond. I wouldn't be like, I'm not going to watch Live and Let Die, John, because I hated Diamonds Are Forever.
I know. I'll never understand that
like,
framework.
If something's good, you watch it. Period.
It's almost like when you're presented new data, you can change your mind.
It's just
Wild.
unbelievable.
Go figure.
I refuse to change my mind.
All right, what's next?
From the Super Ranger Mud Truck. Hey, John. Laying in bed recovering from butt surgery.
Oh, dear.
Love the show. Bring on the filthy. Hopefully you don't do too much of that today.
Wait a minute.
That was probably more information that we needed, but hopefully you're laying on your stomach.
Yeah.
Or a donut. Little butt cushion.
Yeah.
Oh, best of luck in your recovery, though, dude. All right, what's next?
From, there we go. Victor Rodriguez. I feel like Ant-Man Quantumania might be like Eternals, where the critic reviews weren't that great, but the movie was still pretty good. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, like even the Eternals, which is a 47%, like that is still roughly half the critics did like it. So, so I always kind of giggle. I think I got to do a video about people, how to understand Rotten Tomatoes, right? Because a movie gets like a 53% and then people say critics hated it. No, that's not how Rotten Tomatoes works. See, a 53% literally means that about half of the critics actually liked it and half of the critics didn't. And with Eternals, it's the same thing. I mean, 47 is the lowest one they've ever had. Hopefully it will always be the lowest one they've ever had. But it still meant close to half of them did like it. By the way, I like them. I've watched it several times now. And every time I watch it, I like it a little bit more every time. Well, I actually quite enjoy it.
We've talked about on the show that Eternals has been streamed quite a bit since it went up on Disney+.
Well, it was the number one streamed Marvel movie of 2022.
And the thing is, people are watching it and they're going, oh, because I think there's an expectation that's set up. And when Marvel look, I'm not going to say subverting expectations, but when something doesn't fit into that box, that people tend to reject it. I think Quantumania is going to be, I think I'm going to love it, to be honest.
I hope we do.
The sci-fi elements of it, it's just different than what people are expecting. And different and unexpected doesn't necessarily mean bad. And I think in this day and age, people's knee-jerk reactions become, unfortunately, part of the public record rather than a reassessment later, which is what happened to Eternals.
All right, what's next?
I don't know if you guys saw this, but this was coming through on the news.
No!
Oh, wow.
Raquel Welch.
No. Well, I mean, obviously, listen, we don't have time to read about this right now. We'll talk about this on tomorrow's show, but that's horrible news to hear. We'll cover this more tomorrow once we have a chance to read about it and figure out what the details of that are.
Wow.
All right, what's next?
From Dominic Suma. Is Joker 2 the first time we've had a Best Actor winner playing the same character in a sequel? Fascinating, if so.
Well, I mean, Marlon Brando won for Godfather, but he did not appear in the sequel.
No.
The character did. Did Robert De Niro win for Godfather 2? but he wasn't in 3.
Right.
Boy, that's a really good question. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that won the best actor. Oh, Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
He did come back and play him in a sequel.
Yep.
Actually, I'm seeing some people in the live chat are writing in Anthony Hopkins as well. James Argenta wrote in. So that's one.
And it's funny, Paul Newman won an Academy Award for playing Fast Eddie Felsen in The Color of Money.
Oh, and then.
But he'd already played him in The Hustler.
That's right.
So, I mean, he didn't win
So
and
he
then
won
play
it
the same.
later.
Yeah,
So he
he won
did it
for
in
playing the same
reverse.
character later. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Here's a question. I know he was nominated. Sylvester Stallone didn't win Best Actor for Rocky, right? He won for Best Screenplay.
Screenplay, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So there's that. Okay. Yeah. It would put him. Yeah. This puts him in very rare company, as a matter of fact. I didn't even think about that. That's an interesting thought. All right. What's next?
From Living with Dameron, do you think the standard Marvel has set for itself is causing critics to be more harsh in reviews as of late? Or is the quality dropping?
No, listen, look. Film critics are just like everybody else. You watch a movie, it's an experiential event, and it hits you in your own unique way. And sometimes that's going to be great, and sometimes it's not going to be great. I don't think critics are coming at Marvel films with a harder standard now. I think they go into any movie the way they go into any other movie. What kind of an experience does this movie give me? And if it gives them an experience that for them really works and it clicks and it gives them a positive experience watching it, they give it a positive review. If they watch it and it doesn't click for them, it's not really working for them, it's falling flat for them, then they give it a negative review. Now, the next critic sitting right beside them may have a completely opposite reaction. But I think, we as movie fans, more than maybe almost anybody else, we are always looking for a formula. Whether it's a formula of how to make a good movie or how to do this. And then we even look for formulas in reviews that movies get. The reality is, it's just a whole bunch of individuals who happen to watch more movies than most people do, go in and they have their own experience. So I think it's safe to say Marvel just lately, because I can say this is true for me, Marvel just lately has not been making their movies that have been delivering a positive experience to a wider group of people like they used to. Now, don't get me wrong, they still do. Like, you look at WandaVision, you look at the Marvels, you look at Shang-Chi, they have created some spectacular stuff in the last couple of years. But they've also put out a higher quantity of things that fall a little bit short of what their standard is. And again, I have not seen Ant-Man Quantumania yet. I'm hoping I'm going to come out of that theater tomorrow absolutely buzzing and absolutely loving it. But the reality is they've put out a bunch of stuff last year or so that I've come out going, I'm a little bit disappointed by it. I'm not a big fan of She-Hulk, was disappointed with Moon Knight. I wasn't a big fan of Black Widow. There's just, so it is what it is. I think we forget that making any good movie is nearly impossible. We as an audience have just become to the point that we become desensitized. We just think, just make a good movie. Making good movies easy. You can roll out of bed and make a good movie. And what I think we underestimate, what an incredible feat that Kevin Feige did by going almost 2 decades of making films that were just killer after killer after killer after killer. But you can't keep up that pace. You're going to hit down points. And yeah, I kind of think since the beginning of Phase 4, with the exception of a few really great highlights like Shang-Chi and a few others, they have been in their weakest state for a while. And that's how I interpret it right now. So we'll see.
I agree. And what the thing about Shang-Chi is, again, Shang-Chi was a movie about one guy. I mean, sure, there's other people in the movie, but it was all about him going through this personal situation. And so he had to confront his father. He had to deal with his place in the world. And I think that's why you and I really enjoyed that film. I really like movies because it was about that person.
Well, it felt very reminiscent of Phase 1. Let me
Yes.
introduce
It really
this player
was.
to you.
Yes.
Let me give you their full backstory so you understand them. So when they do come together and assemble, you go, wow, this team is going to have some issues, but I think they're going to pull through. You got to
100%.
have that.
100%.
Yeah. Again, just, like Thor Love and Thunder compared to Thor Ragnarok. They just lost the balancing tip of where to put things. Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. By the way, I like Thor: Love and Thunder, and I like Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness, but neither of those films lived up to their previous films, in my opinion. And but it's not easy, guys. It's not easy to make good movies, let alone try to make 8 of them in a year or something like that. All right, what's next?
From Joey Boboe, Jordan Peele recently spoke on turning down live-action Akira, but with Waititi slated to direct and DiCaprio producing, it'll someday exit development. Thoughts?
Man, I don't know. They have been trying. I remember talking about new reports and movement on an Akira project back in the AMC Movie Talk days. I mean, I've literally been covering new developments on a possible Akira live action film for over a decade. And it's just one of those projects that to me is I'll believe it when I see it sort of thing. What do you think, Rob?
They're never going to make that movie. They're never going to make that movie because that movie requires, they talked about Keanu Reeves starring in it at one point. If you look at what that movie's about, it's about a teen motorcycle gang that gets involved in a big sci-fi action adventure thing. First of all, they're not going to spend that much money on a young 16-year-old plus high school group of teen motorcyclists in a future devastated, rebuilt Neo-Tokyo. Everything about it, they have to change. And it won't be like and everyone will look at something like Alita Battle Angel and go, there was a beloved property. Mm-hmm. Akira is so far away, and Taika Waititi might love Akira, but he's still faced with Akira is what it is. And you could go back and adapt the manga, which is a lot bigger than the movie itself. The movie only represents a small portion of that. I don't know how you can do that, especially as a movie. If someone said we're going to do an Akira series, I'd be like, oh, okay, I could see that. Mm-hmm. But as a movie, you've got this 6 thick volume Akira comic, and I don't think that and I'm a huge Akira fan. I don't see as there's any way of doing that as a feature film.
It's so stylized and violent, and there's so many effects that you have to pay for too, that if you don't really lean in, it's going to look so hokey. And we've seen time after time too, anime adaptations, manga adaptations really fall flat because they either are too stylized or they don't commit to the medium enough. And it's just this weird sort of nebulous area that they live in then of not fulfilling what the original IP delivered on. So there's this weird translation to mediums too.
Absolutely. And at the end of that movie, how are they going to make Western audiences buy into that without changing it?
Yeah.
All right. We got time for a couple more. What's next?
From Alejandro Flores Rosales, it's wild that the Super Bowl had over 100 million views and the World Cup final had 1.5 billion views.
That's worldwide, though. Like we were talking about the one market, like that's the thing with the Super Bowl, the 113 million live views is by far the biggest television event ever in America, like by far. So yeah, other events can have a global audience. The NFL is not a global audience, right? It's something completely different, and it's their yearly league, not this once every 4 years when the whole world comes together. Like, by the way, I'm sure the Olympics as well probably have some things that might rank a little bit higher than that. But as far as like a U.S. telecast is the biggest thing of all time. All right, what's next?
From Amin, my prediction for Ant-Man opening weekend, between 105 and 115 million.
That wouldn't be too far off from the projections. They're saying 95 to 100. So 100, I think 105 to maybe 110 is not unrealistic. I think it absolutely could come in that. So, but we'll see. We'll find out in a couple of days. All right, what's next?
From Totally Random Talk, Clerks 2 is in your top 20 favorite movies.
Yes.
Have you seen Clerks 3 yet?
Yes.
Even a one-word thought, Mr. Campea would be a plus. Thanks and Ring on the Filthy. So
yeah,
yes.
I really quite enjoyed it. It's not as good as Clerks 2 to me, but then again, because movies are such a subjective thing, Clerks 2 was a movie that came into my life at a very particular time in my life where it spoke directly to my life and situations I was in. It became a very, very special movie to me on that level. Clerks 3 does not do that for me, but it's a very, very well done movie. It's really unfortunate that it didn't get to be a traditional theatrically released film. You didn't have to put a lot of money into it. It's a very low budget film. I think it easily could have made money, but yeah, I quite enjoyed it. Not the same meaning to me like the second one does, but I quite enjoyed it. All right, what's next?
From Irene Jobson. Hey, Irene. Which do you think will pull more views, Blood and Honey or Cocaine Bear?
Cocaine Bear.
Oh yeah,
Cocaine Bear.
by a factor of 1,000 or something like that. Yeah, I cannot wait. Like I actually put this up on my social media the other day because I don't accept press event invitations anymore. I don't go to press screenings. I don't go to whatever, but I still get them every day. And the one that came in the other day was for Cocaine Bear. And I'll tell you what, I don't often feel tempted to hit the RSVP button. Oh man, I was tempted to hit the RSVP button on that one. I'm not going to go, but because I'll watch it with everybody else in a couple weeks, but I'm very excited for this movie. I'm very, very excited for this movie. I can't wait to watch it.
It looks good.
And I'm hoping to finally love a movie that Elizabeth Banks directs. Because I love Elizabeth Banks. Love her. Haven't loved her directorial efforts yet. And I'm just being honest, right? So I'm going to be cheering for her on this one. I can't wait. All right, what's next?
From Bright, seems like the main gripe critics have is the story isn't great, but I'm not going to an Ant-Man movie for Oscar-level screenwriting. I just want a fun movie and to see Kang whoop some ass.
Here's the thing, though. Why can't you have both? Like, sometimes we make excuses for movies. I think we all do it. I think I've done it. I think everybody's done. We make excuses for movies. So I just want it to be fun. Well, yeah, okay. Is there a rule that says you cannot be fun and have a great script and make a great movie at the same time? Like, look at Spider-Man No Way Home. It was fun and all that kind of, sure, but it was also backed up by a really good script with some great dialogue and a good story and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, one does not have to be devoid of the other. Like, and sometimes, like in a lot of the Transformers movies, yeah, there's big bombastic action and all that kind of stuff, but everything else around it was so bad, I just couldn't enjoy it. I just couldn't have a good time with it, other than Bumblebee, which I thought Bumblebee was great. But yeah, I think sometimes I have been guilty of saying, well, I just need it to be fun. But to be fun, you kind of need some decent writing. Like if you're going to actually make it, I don't know, Rob, how would you address that?
Well, I think I completely agree with that. I suspect that a lot of the people that have and again, I have not seen the movie, John, but by saying this, I think the sci-fi nature of the quantum realm and the sheer wackiness, the unreality of it has put some people off, especially if you're a fan of Ant-Man and the humor and the kind of movie it is. They've really, because I know a lot of people that don't dig sci-fi. I mean, they like Star Wars because they can relate to that, but this movie is really wacky. I mean, you can see just from the design of the quantum realm, the kind of characters, MODOK, a giant head floating around. I mean, with little arms. And I mean, I think there's a lot in here that unless you're a real comic book fan and a real sci-fi fan, it might even be a little off-putting, maybe because it's gone too far in one direction. So people are like, I don't know what was going on half the time. Maybe, I don't know. I have no idea.
All right, we'll take time for one more. What's next?
From Collins E., what happens first, Uncharted 2 or Spider-Man 4?
Ooh, that's actually a very good question.
Good one.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Uncharted 2. Kevin Feige just came out and announced that we've got our story for Spider-Man 4. We've got screenwriters starting to write it, but this ain't going to come out until probably after Kang Dynasty or maybe even Secret Wars. Whereas I wouldn't doubt for a second that they've already got a fully completed script for Uncharted 2. They're just not making announcements about it or anything like that. So I'm going to guess Uncharted comes out next. I don't know. What do you think?
I tend to agree with you. I mean, I think that somebody's probably already written an Uncharted 2 script.
Yeah.
I would imagine. So, I mean, don't
send Rob your Uncharted script.
Don't.
Send your scripts to
no, but I think that's probably true.
Well, I know Ray wants an Uncharted movie before Spider-Man 4. Ray's the one guy in the room that actually realized. By the way, I didn't hate Uncharted. I didn't hate it. I thought it had its upside. I didn't particularly think it was good, but it has potential.
What, Ray?
I can't believe you.
What do you mean you can't believe me? I didn't like it.
I will be going to see a sequel, though, with high expectations and high hopes. High hopes. But I think we're going to get that one.
High hopes.
All right, guys, that's all the time we have to today. We got to get ready for this. Who's coming on again?
Jerry Bruckheimer.
Yeah, that's the guy. That guy. Mustache McGee is coming on the show. We cannot wait to have him on. Actually, it's a pretty big deal. We're really excited about it.
deal.
So thank you so much, guys, for being here and making the show part of your day. Big special thank you to you guys who sent in those member chats. Number one, thank you for being channel members. And number two, thank you for giving us some great fun things to talk about. Don't forget, guys, we will be back again tomorrow for the next installment of the John Campea Show. And again, at 3 p.m. Los Angeles time today, that's 6 p.m. New York time. Coming back, and I'll be doing an open mic, just taking your guys' live comments and questions. So I hope you guys will come back and join me for that. So, for everybody in the room, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Over there, we got Ray Ora. Back there, getting ready to go see Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Yeah.
We got Taylor. Jonathan Voikel's been running the show. And of course, Chris Carr. My name is John Campea. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.